Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Emily.
And we're the hosts of the I Don't Think So podcast. Each episode, we discuss a different story, theory, or mystery and decide if we think it's believable or if we really don't think so.
Here at the I Don't Think So podcast, we are affiliated with Flurry Sports. We present our theories on your favorite place to listen to podcasts every Wednesday. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a rating or leave a comment. And follow us on all of our socials at I Don't Think So _EH. Or you can check out our YouTube page at IDTS Conspiracies.
Ooh.
Really threw a couple vowels in there.
Since September was still the beginning of this week, I realized that I stuck with the September theme.
Perfect.
So we're still talking about missing people today, when I definitely should have thought of a different theme.
Done a new theme.
But you know what? It's kind of a quick mystery today. Oops. And then maybe we can just go on a little rant at the end.
Us rant? Never.
So we're going to be starting with one more missing people case because it's more than one people. It's more than one person.
God.
I know. Kind of a sad one to wrap up on at the beginning of October. And then maybe we can do some sort of spooky.
Yeah, I know I've saved some spooky stories. So
I have two. So there you go. Bonus missing persons case. And maybe we can end the show. I'll give you some time to think of a scary experience or supernatural experience you think you've had. Okay. That sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Not to put you on the spot, but you've got 20 minutes. Anyway, we're going.
I'm going to lose my job.
There's been so many times where I'm like, it'd be funny if we did our favorite pop culture moments. But then I always forget this is not a visual podcast. But that's okay, you know. Anyway, we are going to be talking about the disappearance of the Beaumont children.
Okay.
I've never heard of them.
No.
Until I researched it. But Jane, Arna, and Grant Beaumont, collectively referred to as the Beaumont children at the time, well, and still, were three Australian siblings who ended up disappearing on Glenelg Beach near Adelaide, South Australia on January 26, 1966. And it's suspected that they were abducted and sadly murdered. However, there's no real evidence as to what happened to them.
Oh my.
So, just to give you a little bit of background, Jane, Arna, and Grant lived with their parents, Grant, who went by Jim Beaumont, so Grant was a junior, who was a serviceman and a taxi driver, and their mother, Nancy. The couple had married in 1955 and then had the three children leading up to their trip to the beach in 1966. It was a very hot day in the midst of a heat wave. I always forget that Australia's on a different weather pattern.
Yes.
They're the opposite.
Can you imagine December 25th rolls around and it's dead of summer?
No. I can't really I think what's weird for me, because I think Christmas has been so I don't know, commercialized the world. So they market it as this wintry holiday from more Western culture. But you think about South America, places that get snow, and it's hot there. It's just weird to me. But anyway, yeah. Heat wave, 1966. Jim dropped off the children at Glenelg Beach before heading off for a sales trip in Snowtown. Pretty much that day, he was there with the mom and the kids were there. The kids weren't there by themselves.
Okay, that was my next follow-up.
Yes.
I'm just left them?
So they all went there on a trip while Dad was gone on a work trip.
Okay.
That morning, the kids asked their mom if they were able to go to the beach because it was so hot. as it was too hot to walk, they ended up driving there, and the kids caught a bus there at 8:45. They were expected to return home by noon, so the kids did go there by themselves.
How old were
they? I'll tell you.
I'll let you know.
10, 11, 10, 8, and 5.
They should not have gone there.
It was 1966, Emily.
Expecting your 5th grader to be the one in charge?
Yes. I agree with you. They shouldn't have gone to the beach by themselves, but it was a 5-minute walk. Their parents thought it was fine. They ended up taking a bus because it was so hot. So the kids caught the bus at 8:45. They were expected to be home by noon. However, when they didn't come home, Nancy became worried, and they weren't on the 12 o'clock bus or the 2 o'clock bus back to their house. So when Jim ended up returning home from his trip around 3 p.m., he immediately drove to the crowded beach where he was unable to find the children. Finally, at around 5:30 p.m. is when they finally called the police station to report the kids missing.
I'm sorry. Even if your kids don't get taken, you are sending them to water. Like, you are having a 5-year-old in the water without any supervision by anybody other than, at most, a 10-year-old.
I 100% agree with you. But I do think to give some people some credit, like people who live by like creeks and things like that, let their kids play outside and they could go out and drown too.
Yeah.
Not saying it's good, but
if you're 5, you're not like, oh, come out the door.
I agree with you. I'm just trying to give the parents some credit. I don't think they were like,
and again, I get it. It was 1966. It was probably just like, get the kids out the house.
It's hot.
It's hot. You're hot.
I need a break.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I'm a little annoyed that she didn't go to the beach.
She should have gone to the beach.
Oh my God, they're not coming back on the buses. Go to the beach.
Don't worry. The police were not much help.
Good.
The police quickly came to the beach and were searching Glenelg Beach and like the close by areas, pretty much thinking that the kids had simply just walked off because they lost track of time. So they're like, oh, we don't have to worry. We can search, but it's not that big of a deal. The kids probably just lost track of time. They'll be home soon. The search ended up expanding out to the nearby sandhills, through the ocean, to nearby buildings, the airport, the rail lines, the interstate roads, all of these places, because they're like, well, since we can't find them, maybe they got kidnapped.
Or they drowned.
Within 24 hours, the entire nation was aware of this case. So it got blown up very quickly. And within 3 days, Sunday Mail, which is like a huge newspaper, ended up leading with the headline, said sex crime now feared, basically making this assumption that these kids had been abducted to then be murdered and taken by by a sex offender or something like that.
Oh boy.
They ended up releasing a 250-pound reward, saying anyone who has any information to reach out, but nothing pretty much came of the search. Police tried to investigate several witnesses who had seen the Beaumont children, and several witnesses stated that they saw them in the company of a tall man with fair, light brown hair and a very thin face.
I'm shocked because that to me would be like, if I was at a park, Lord knows I don't go to beaches very often. So I'm at a park and I see 3 children of that age roll up, you're taking notice.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe you aren't in 1966, but if some random man walks up kind of with them, I'm going to assume that's either parent, guardian, supervisor. Like, that's
correct.
And then I'm not taking any fucking notice.
Well, and that's pretty much, they said, like, several of the witnesses, when they noticed the children, already saw them with this man playing. so they weren't really suspicious of anything because the kids had been documented, the witnesses were documented saying that the man appeared to be in his mid-30s, so he could be of the kids'
Could be at the proper age.
Correct. And the children were playing with him and appeared to be relaxed and enjoying themselves. So nothing really seemed suspicious. The man also approached one of the witnesses asking if anyone had been near the children's missing belongings as their money was missing. So supposedly he was trying to help them find like missing items, so they just assumed that he was with them. The man then went off to change while the children waited for him, and the group were seen walking away together sometime later around 12:15-ish. About 2.5 hours later, another witness cited the children with the man, and who she observed carrying like an airline bag or some sort of suitcase, similar to like one that she thought she owned. So she's like, she just figured it was some sort of suitcase or something like that. The Beaumont children described their children, especially the eldest Jane, as shy. So they thought for them to be playing so confidently with a stranger was really out of character. Investigators theorized that the children had perhaps met the man during a previous visit or visits and had grown to trust the man. A chance remark at home, which seemed like insignificant at the time, supports the theory that Arna had told her mother that Jane had got a boyfriend down at the beach.
The 10-year-old?
Uh-huh. And Nancy just thought she meant some sort of like playmate or friend who was appropriately aged and like never really.
But it also could still mean that.
Yeah, never really took anything of that. So
because what 8-year-old's like, my 10-year-old sister has a boyfriend who's 30.
Well, they didn't say that. He just said, Nancy has a boyfriend.
Yeah, but you would say that about a 30-year-old. You'd be like, Nancy's got a new dad.
Well, that's what the kid supposedly said to them.
I'm sure, but that to me is like, it's not the 30-year-old, it's some child.
Sure.
Because I would never be like,
I wouldn't connect it either.
If you and I were hanging out when we were children and some grown adult came and spoke to you, and even if like they were fun,
yeah,
you know my next line of thought? Not boyfriend.
Correct. 100%.
I made a new friend.
100%. Anyway. Sorry. Another shopkeeper near Wenzel's Bakery reported that Jane had bought pastries and a meat pie sometime that afternoon. Police viewed this as further evidence that the Beaumont children had been with another person for two reasons. One, the shopkeeper knew the children well from previous visits and reported that they had never purchased a meat pie before. And second, the children's mother only gave them 6 shillings and a 6-pence, and the lunch had been more expensive than that. So they're like, he must have gotten money from somebody else. Yeah. According to another initial statement, the Beaumont children were seen walking alone at 2:55 away from the beach in the general direction of home. The witness was a mailman who knew the children well, and his statement was regarded as reliable because his time was usually pretty regular because of his route. Mm-hmm. And he said that the children were holding hands and laughing, and police could not determine why the reliable children, already 1 hour late, were strolling alone and seemed like unconcerned, like they thought that they would have been hurrying home.
They're children.
Correct.
You know, if you put me in charge at 10 years old, I don't fucking know what time it is.
100%.
That was still the time when my parents would be like, oh, it's 1:45, and I'm like, 1:45.
Where are we going? 1:45.
1:45, 1:45 how? And they're like, clearly 1:45 or whatever. And I'm like, hey, say 1:45.
I agree. That pretty much ended the initial investigation. They didn't really have any other witnesses, information, anything like that. However, several months later, a woman reported that on the night of the disappearance, a man, accompanied by 2 girls and a boy, entered a neighboring house that she had believed to be empty. Later, the woman said she had seen the boy walking alone along a lane where he was pursued and roughly caught by the man. The next morning, the house appeared to be deserted again, and she saw neither the man nor the children again. Police could not establish why she'd have failed to give this information earlier, but Other reported sightings of the children continued for about a year after the disappearance, but nothing really came of any of that. About 2 years after the disappearance, the Beaumont parents received 2 letters. One was supposedly written by Jane, and another by a man who said he was keeping the children. The envelope showed a postmark of Dandenong, Victoria, which is in a different spot from where they're living.
Okay.
The brief notes described a relatively pleasant existence and referred to the man who was keeping them. Police believed at the time that the letters could quite likely have been authentic after comparing them with other letters written by Jane. And the letter from the man said that he had appointed himself guardian of the children and was willing to hand them back to the parents in a letter at a meeting place that was nominated. The Beaumont parents, followed by a detective, drove to the designated place, but nobody appeared. And sometime later, a 3rd letter arrived, also perpetrated to be Jane, stating that the man had realized that a disguised detective was present, and he decided to keep the parents because the Beaumonts had betrayed his trust. And there was no further letters after that. In 1992, new forensic examinations of the letters showed that they were a hoax. Fingerprint technology had improved by that point, and the author was identified as a 41-year-old man who had been a teenager at the time and had written the letters as a joke. Because of the time that had elapsed, he was not charged with any offense because the statute of limitations had passed.
You're 41.
Correct.
No better.
The only other update at this point was that in November of 2013, excavation was initiated in the back of the North Plimpton factory that had previously belonged to a Harry Phipps, and who was a possible suspect of the Beaumont case.
Okay.
Further excavation at a slightly different location on the site was undertaken in February 2018, but nothing relevant was found. The excavation were based on 2 men who had reported that as boys they had been paid by Phipps to dig a hole in that area at around the time of the disappearance, and also based on geophysical testing, which had identified some anomalies in the disturbed soil. The 2018 search yielded animal bones, but no evidence in relation to the Beaumont children. So again,
nothing
really came of it. So like I said, this one guy, Harry Phipps, was a possible suspect. There's also a couple other men who had been seen at the beach that were investigated as suspects, but nothing really came of it.
Yeah, no.
And to this day, that's pretty much the only updates that they've had.
Sad. I mean, sad for everyone, right? Sad for those children. Sad for the parents. It's. I think that when stuff like this happens, it's like that turning point where you're like, you hear now about like trick or treating, and they're like, there's razor blades in the apples. It's because it happened at one point. But like, sorry, I just saw like a comedian talking about it. He's like, I'll never find out if there's razor blades in the apple because I'm launching that bad boy back in their house. You're not gonna give me an apple on Halloween.
100%.
But it just, I think this is what like makes people lose faith in others. You know, because you're like, oh my god, someone took these children and now there's a 41-year-old writing fake letters because he's bored.
Right. I think like the initial knee-jerk reaction that you had to of like, why would you send your 3 kids to the beach by themselves is like, we would never do that nowadays because of experiences like this that happen. But it's kind of crazy to think about the amount of things that people probably did.
Right. I mean, like, I'm thinking about now, like, I am sure, like, our parents growing up, that's just, like, kicked out of the house.
100%.
And granted, when your mom was born, the oldest was like 6.
Right.
So it's different, but I'm sure, like, my dad and Chuck got sent out when they were not very old.
Yeah.
And it's like a 10-year-old watching an 8-year-old.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, again, they're not getting on a bus to a public beach.
Right. Well, I think our lived experience is a little bit different too, like living out in the country where we couldn't like walk to see people easily.
Right.
Versus if you live in town or you live close to a beach, again, beach is like a very dangerous location. But like if there's lifeguards there or whatever, right? People paid to supposedly be supervising people. They're probably like, yeah, walk down to the beach.
I'm sure it'll be okay.
And it obviously wasn't the first time they'd done it.
No.
So
I feel bad for the parents because I can't imagine the guilt.
right.
I'm sure accompanies that. And parents make mistakes. You're human.
Right.
So it's like, even this to me is a large lapse in judgment, but like, you know, you don't think about stuff like, oh, I'm going to run downstairs and not think of it. And it's going too fast.
Right.
You know? Good story. I mean, like, sad.
Uh-huh.
Those children's sake, I hope it wasn't like a scary end.
But I hope they weren't actually being held hostage by that man.
No, by the creepy 41-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why you would think that's a joke.
I don't know. It's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
No.
Sir.
No.
Also, get a life.
Also, I hate the people that are like, do something terrible. They're like, it's just a joke. You don't have a sense of humor. I'm like, that's not a
It
joke.
was a prank. Not funny.
Not funny. Especially in that instance, like, not funny.
Haha, your kids are gone.
Like, I don't understand.
Whoa. Sir, you took it too far.
Yeah.
It was a good little, like, wrap up of our, you know, missing stories. Like, murder stories.
Yeah, I know.
I
Did
mean,
you
they
think
might
of
have been.
anything spooky?
I did, and then I pulled up a Reddit story as well while we were chit chatting. So I feel I haven't had necessarily a ton of like I haven't seen anything that I remember. I think growing up as a child, I've gotten told that I saw shit, but as like an adult, I don't have those memories anymore.
Yeah.
But the one that always like freaks me out is when I was in college, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, when I was in college, I had to do rounds.
Yes.
And so I had to like at 10 p.m., at midnight, and at 2 a.m. I'd have to honk my ass around and like just walk the floors, make sure everyone was quiet, you know, and then I'd have to go downstairs, check all the like utility rooms to make sure nothing was like blowing up.
For sure.
Or leaking or whatever. So the one building I was in, it was my 2 a.m. round. I'm already like, I don't want to be here. So I'm just trying to get it done. But how this basement was set up, it was just like the building itself looked like a great big T. So it was like long hall
and then another
like,
long
hall.
Oh yeah.
And I had just turned, I was coming back. So I had just gone to the end before hall and just turned back, coming up like the base of the T, basically that big long hall. And I'm not paying a lick of attention. I'm like, nothing's leaking, we're all good. I swear to God, I hear someone run, like up behind me, and I whip around so fast because I'm like, how did I fucking miss someone in this basement? Nobody there. I'm in this long white hallway that the lights turn off frequently. And I swear to God, it like you heard the footsteps, you felt someone coming up behind you, and there was not a soul there. I jogged. I'm not a runner because I'm like, but I jogged the rest of that check, and I'm like, there was room for like, I'm not checking it. It's dark, and I'm scared, and I don't want to be here. And so, yeah, that one I'm like, I don't know what it was, but there was something happening. Also, I grew up in an old house.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child, like when I wouldn't feel good, I'd sleep on the couch out in the living room. I hated sleeping on the couch. It would always sound like you could hear footsteps out in the kitchen.
Yes.
And then we had like a clock, like a regular wall clock, that clicked so loudly. You never heard it during the day, but at night it's like conk, conk, conk.
That's all you have to hear.
Which
Yeah.
is like on top of hearing like what sounds like someone walking in the kitchen. It's like the
A horror
creepiest
movie.
horror movie
Yeah.
you've ever heard.
100%.
But every time that happens, I'm always like, Uncle Ernie, go to bed.
Stop walking around.
Leo, chill out. You're kind of spooking me. Yeah, those are some of like, I feel like I get so scared when those things happen that
Yeah.
I think I black out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the weird experiences I had like that were when we worked at the hotel together.
Mm-hmm.
I remember so many nights that I'd be there and you'd be walking up on second floor and you would just like you would swear that you saw people walking through the hallways and things like that. There's also one time I still to this day don't know how it happened, but they had the deadbolt like flipped open so that the door wouldn't shut.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had this like metal thing trapped inside the door. And somehow I don't know how. I was an empty room. I was supposed to be bringing sheets up to it. And I heard it like flip close and then the door slammed shut. And it's like someone has to move that
Right.
to
Have that.
happen.
You have to open the door up a little bit, flip it around, and then let the door close.
Correct. And so then I'm like freaked out thinking someone's
in the room.
Someone has to be in the room for it to happen because I don't see anyone in the hallway, right? Mm-hmm. And so I am freaked out. And I'm like, I don't want to go in there because, like, what if it's a murderer or something? Or a creep or whatever. And so I'm like, I have to, like, bring stuff in there. And so I knocked thinking, like,
open the door?
I don't know. I don't know what I thought. But in my head, I'm like, I should knock if someone's in there. Because I guess maybe in my head I thought like maybe I thought that like they thought they had a different room or something.
Sure. Oh my god, I left my door open.
Or I was thinking like they're checking in or something and they thought that was their room.
Oh, sure.
And they just went in there and then they're probably like, my bed's not made.
Oh dear.
And so I think that I don't know what I was thinking. I was 16.
I was a child.
Stupid. So I like knocked and nothing. Like housekeeping, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. And so I opened the door and there's no one in there. And I'm like, ah!
Like, run away.
And I ran downstairs and I'm like, Laura, I didn't make the bed because I'm so scared. It's shut. And she's like, were you up on second floor? I'm like, yeah. And she's just like, just leave it. So I'm like, I'm not going back up there. At least not by myself.
You're gonna have to drag someone up there with me. I refuse. Yeah, no.
Oh god.
I am fight, flight, or freeze. I'm telling you, in a horror movie, I am not the one that's like, oh, there was a noise in the basement. Let's go check it out.
No.
I'm fucking sending someone else's ass down there, and I'm running.
I would rather. I am like, let's pretend we heard nothing.
Oh, 100%. I'm just gonna stare straight ahead.
No one's investigating it. I don't know what you're talking about.
There was no noise. Liar.
All
right, should we read this Reddit post?
Yep.
All right. This comes from the Ghost Stories Reddit page.
Oh gosh.
I have not read it, obviously. So here we go.
So hopefully it's good.
Hopefully it's okay. So this is titled, I Grew Up in a Haunted House.
Oh.
So I'm a 25-year-old female, and I've got a few strange stories from my childhood that I think would fit perfectly here. This is my first post sharing these experiences. I grew up outside the U.S. in a large, old, 4-story house. While I never personally saw an apparition in the house, I did have some intense experiences, and many other people did too. One of the most common stories I was told about involved a little girl who was frequently seen around the house. I've always believed in the paranormal, but since I lived there and never saw a little girl, I thought maybe people were exaggerating. That is until my dad told me his story. One night, he woke in the middle of the night. My mom had gotten up to use the bathroom and left the door slightly ajar, allowing a bit of light to spill into the room. As my dad turned over, something in the room caught his eye. Standing in the middle of the room was a little girl. She was dressed in a white nightgown, her face partially hidden by shadows. At first, he thought it was me, as I was around 9 or 10 at the time. Then he remembered I wasn't even home that night.
Oh,
He said a chill ran through him, and not knowing what else to do, he simply turned over and pretended to go back to sleep.
That's not me.
When my mom came back to bed, she didn't see anything out of the ordinary. That wasn't the last time someone mentioned seeing a little girl in the house, but it was one of the first moments that made me if something or some things might be in the house.
Oh,
That makes me want to throw up.
that is 100% me though. Like, if I just stay in bed, and my toes are under the covers, and they can't get me. Ugh.
I would be like,
No.
100%. No. I'm like, yeah.
Like, I must just be hallucinating.
Absolutely. I'd be like, I'm not sleeping.
Also, if that was my child, quit standing with your face all shadowed. Like,
Mine freaks me out about kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
they just like rock up and they're like, I'm thirsty. And you're a creepy little goblin in the dark.
like, don't do that. Oh God. One more.
What do we want?
Well, we're at 32 minutes. So.
Perfect. This one's called The Devil's Children.
Perfect. What a way to end it.
In a small town where I grew up, everyone knew of the outcasts. They lived on the outskirts in a decaying farmhouse that sagged under the weight of its own isolation. Ooh. People whispered that they were Satanists, practicing dark rituals under the cover of night. But no one ever did anything about it. We left them alone, and they left us alone, or so we thought. Everything changed when the children started disappearing. Ooh. It began with a boy named Tommy, only 8 years old, vanished one evening on his way home from school. Then another child, a girl named Sarah, didn't come home after a play date. Panic gripped the town, but no one dared speak aloud what everyone was thinking. The outcasts. Police did what they could, but wasn't much. They searched the woods, questioned the outcasts, and turned up nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was festering in that farmhouse. So one night, armed with nothing but a flashlight and my own determination, I decided to go there myself.
Wrong.
You know what? You have what's coming to you.
And then I died. Yeah, you should.
And I'm ready
Nothing
from
but
the grave.
a flashlight and my brave determination. No, you're stupid.
Sorry,
Sorry.
idiot.
Continue.
The farmhouse loomed larger than I remembered. Its broken windows, like eyes watching me approach. The air was heavy, oppressive, as if the night itself didn't want me there. Yeah!
Imagine why.
But I pushed forward, stupid. Every step dragging me closer to whatever nightmare waited inside. I slipped through the side door, which you're breaking another?
You are the problem.
You're the problem. I slipped through the side door, which groaned on its rusted hinges. The house smelled of damp wood and decay. I moved quietly, careful not to disturb anything, though the place seemed long abandoned. Then I found the cellar door. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended into the darkness. At the bottom, I was hit with the scent of copper blood. Ugh. My heart pounded in my chest as I rounded the corner, my flashlight beam flickering against the with it. The grotesque altar stood at the center of the cellar, draped in a torn cloth and smeared with blood. Symbols I couldn't understand covered the walls, carved into the stone, and around the altar, black candles burned in the their flames flickering unnaturally. The air felt wrong, thick, suffocating, as if it had been tainted by something that shouldn't exist. Why I've got goosebumps. Anyway, I hate it. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and turned to leave, but that's when I saw them, the children. They stood in neat rows, silent, unmoving, but something was horribly wrong. Their eyes, those weren't the eyes of children. They were black, deeper than any darkness I had ever seen, like boys that could swallow your soul if you looked too long. Their faces were expressionless, pale as death, but their lips slowly curled into smiles.
Oh, puke.
Grotesque and unnatural. My breath caught in my throat and realization sank in. These weren't the children anymore. There was something else, something evil. I took a step back, my hand trembling on the flashlight, but it was too late. They moved in unison, their steps light and soundless as we advanced towards me. I felt the coldness of their presence as if the warmth of life had been sucked from the room. Then I knew the ritual hadn't been to summon the devil. It was to turn them into his servants. Their smiles grew wider as they came closer, the flickering candlelight casting ghastly shadows across their faces. I tried to move, I tried to run, but my feet were frozen, locked in place by the sheer terror that gripped me. Last thing I remember was one of them reaching out, their cold, lifeless hand brushing against mine, for everything went black. I woke up outside the farmhouse, my clothes damp with morning dew. The cellar door was gone, no blood, no altar, just an empty house. The children were never found, and I never spoke of what I saw. Sometimes at night, I still see them, standing at the edge of my vision, their black eyes watching, waiting. I know they're not done.
Well, that was awful.
That's not real. I mean,
I know,
just
but
like making up a scary
still.
But that wasn't fun for anyone.
I mean, good creative writing, a round of
Beautiful.
applause, set the mood, but like,
You can fuck off.
never talk to me ever again.
These stories, keep them to yourself.
As we're looking at a ghost story Reddit.
I told you to knock it off. All right.
Oh.
Oh my god, my calf almost cramped up. You know where you start to feel it cramp and you're like,
Yes.
no.
Oh, no,
Okay.
a Charlie horse on the pod.
No, please. I just get so scared my legs lock up.
Well, that ends our mystery month.
Yeah.
That should have ended last month and was a nice little transition into spooky season.
Welcome to spooky season.
If you have any other fun, scary stories, not like nightmare,
Gonna make me not sleep well at night.
correct, I would love to hear them. And if you have any other suggestions for our podcast, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.